Hello, everybody. Greetings from Poole and Bournemouth on the sunny south coast of England. A warm welcome to our talk tonight given by Jussara Korngold, who is joining us with live from the United States. I am Fabrício Assunção from the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth. I'm very pleased that our society again hosting this Friday talk in partnership with the Poole Christian Spiritualist Church. This is one of many events resulting from the fraternal collaboration between the two groups. This evening talk is entitled Spiritual Influence. It's one of our fortnightly talks linked to the psychological series of writing by the spirit of Joanna de Angelis. Joanna is a spirit and guide for the most famous living spiritist medium, Divaldo Franco, and is the source of many important spiritist books published across the world. Let me give you a few words of introduction about tonight's distinguished speaker, Jussara Korngold. Jussara is an author and a translator, and she works as an executive of Brazil Child Health. She is the founder and president of the Spirit Group of New York and the Spirit Alliance for Books, which promotes Spiritism in English. Jussara is a prominent leader in the Spiritist movement. She is the president of the United States Spiritist Federation, general secretary of the International Spiritist Council, and executive director of the Tri-State Spiritist Federation. Before I hand over to Jussara, let's go first to Lawrence Saville for our opening prayer. Over to you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Fabrizio, and very good evening and a very warm welcome to everybody, and especially for the wonderful return of the lovely Jussara. So lovely to see you again. And now, dear friends, if we could still our minds, our bodies, go deep within, making that connection with the divinity that resides in all things. And just link in. Feel that power, feel that understanding, that compassion and that love. And we ask this night that yet again we embark upon this path of knowledge, upon this path of learning, upon this path of upliftment. That we open our ears, our minds and our hearts to all that is said tonight, for all that is given through Spirit to Spirit is given in the highest and the best that we can be. And we now leave this evening and we look forward to hearing these words of wisdom shared to help us along our own pathways, all individual but with the same goal. And even though we are not gathered together here in the physical, we all reside under but one sky. Amen.
Lawrence. My friends, now it's my pleasure to hand over to Jussara for her talk on spiritual influence.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much for having me once again. It's really wonderful to be among you, friends from the UK, and for us to have this opportunity of reflecting together. Today, we have chosen this topic by Joanna de Angelis, Spiritual Influences, because it's something that it's quite necessary for us to understand during this present year, especially because many things are happening in terms of the realm of the spirit that we need to understand, that we need to address. Many people have an attitude of believing because I cannot see with my physical eyes, it does not exist. And sometimes I think that all of us that deal with the spiritual realm, the spiritualistic ideas, we have such a great challenge before ourselves that it could be perhaps compared to the challenge that Louis Pasteur found during his time as a scientist when he was researching about the presence of bacteria and viruses, and no one from the scientific world would believe him because they could not see the bacteria, the virus with their own eyes. So here we are, is still on the 21st century, where many people deny or somehow refrain for even talking about anything pertaining to the spiritual realm. And because of that, because of this lack of knowledge and understanding, we can become more easily prey to the influence of those spirits that we refuse to admit their existence. So today, the way that we have programmed our presentation to you is going to be divided in two parts, plus the Q&A, of course. But the first part, we are going just to give you a general idea for those who are not that familiar with what we are talking about here when referring to the presence of spirits, the interaction of both worlds. And then we are going to be analyzing a precious message that the Spirit Joanna de Angelis has dictated through the medium Divaldo Pereira Franco in a book that she names Alert. And it's being currently translated into English, and hopefully soon we will have it published for everyone to enjoy it. So let us start with our first slide. Very basic things. Does the thinking being that exists within us stop thinking after death? And the answer is no. So the idea that we spiritualists have is that there is no actual death. And since there is no actual death, the spirit survives. We are talking about the mortality of the soul. This means that we will keep on thinking and feeling the same emotions that we have before. And if we keep on thinking, do we still think of those whom we love or hate? Evidently, there is no way or no reason whatsoever that if I keep my thinking being, so to say, into existence, even if in a different dimension, that I would not still feel what I feel. And if one can be anywhere, can a spirit also be next to us? A spirit has the possibility of being next to us, of course. And if a spirit may be by our side, can it communicate with us? This is obviously another possibility. It is not so easy for this to be accomplished as one may think, but this is a possibility, and we have to keep that in mind. Maybe in a future presentation, we can talk a little bit more about this. But today we are really going to talk more about, the presence of the spirits. So here we have the presence of a spirit that we call discarnate, and one that we call incarnate, just because we still have our physical body. And there is one very important question on the Spirits book, that is question 459, that the question Allan Kardec proposes to the spirits is, do spirits influence our thoughts and actions? And the reply from the spirit is, their influence upon you in this regard is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who guide you. So having established that death is not the end, that we continue as immortal spirits, that we have the opportunity, the possibility of communicating, of getting closer to someone according to our desires, according to the similarities, so to say, that we are going to find with one another. So we can say and affirm that we are surrounded by spirits. Paul of Tarsus, the famous apostle as well, that continued spreading the teachings of Jesus, he would say that we have a cloud of witnesses. He was talking exactly about that, because we may believe ourselves to be doing or acting alone, but are we really? And this is what we need to pay attention to, because it is possible for both worlds to intermingle, but there is, of course, a vibrational barrier that can prevent us to be in open communication, so to say, which doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's just a matter of us being capable of understanding, assimilating, and realizing that there is this communication. So it is not completely open. The spirits are not just walking, parading before our eyes, but it doesn't mean that they are not there. And this vibrational barrier is what makes it really difficult for us to acknowledge their presence. So how is it possible? So how can we be able to overcome this vibrational barrier? How can they actually get in touch with us? So one of the ways would be exactly during our sleep state. It is said, and we understand it to be true, that during our sleep state, we leave our physical body resting while our spirit can enjoy some freedom and get in touch with the spirit realm. And as a consequence, we may be able to see and to communicate with spirits, to talk to a guardian angel, to learn things, to experience things that pertains to the spiritual realm. Many people at this point may be saying, how come, this happened 365 days a year, and I don't remember one of those experiences? Because, everything that is going to be related to the remembrance of the physical body not necessarily is going to be triggered in terms of our physical brain, because the physical brain is also here resting while we are enjoying those things on the level of spirit, on the level of the spiritual thinking being that may not resonate necessarily in our physical brains. And that's why we don't keep the memory of all our experiences during our sleep state. So we can see here how it shows that due to the silver cord, we are always attached during our sleep time, but we can get into contact with spiritual beings. One thing that is going to be very intriguing for people that may be be hearing that for the first time, or is not that much familiar, is so the spirits can see everything we do. They can, but they may not be interested in what we are doing. The same way that here on Earth, sometimes we are strolling on the streets and we see that there are some things happening, but it doesn't catch our attention. So the spirits can be the same thing. And of course, since we are talking about thoughts, and the communication is the language of thoughts, they can obviously know what we are thinking. They can see our true colors. Again, only those that will be interested in us. Others that couldn't care less about us will not necessarily tune in with us and be able to say what we are doing. Another way that we see the presence of spirits, the spiritual influences, can be in terms of a very positive action. Every time that we are going through a period of distress, or be it because of our family lives, our professional lives, our health, we can receive the presence and protection of spirits that can assist us in this way. And of course, through mediumship as well, we will be able to perceive even more the presence of spirits and have this interaction with them. So how can we know if the thoughts are mine or not? This is a question that Kardec asks also in the Spirit book. And the reply from the Spirit is that many times it is a combination. One thing that is very important for us to understand is, like, we act like an antenna. Okay, there are many things happening around us on the physical realm, on the spiritual realm, and we are going to synchronize with the ideas that will catch our attention, and vice versa. So it's very much like when I turn on a radio, the frequency that I'm going to attune or tune in to hear a radio station, a network, is going to be the one that is it resonates in me. So if I like classic music, I'm going to tune into classic music. And this is the same thing that happens in terms of all the spiritual influences that can be with us. And of course, they can be good, they can be evil, they can be very difficult. How can we know whether they are good or bad? At this point in time, considering the spiritual evolvement that we have already achieved on an individual level, we already know, the content of our thoughts, or the suggested thoughts, to discern if they come from a good or a bad source. So this is why I like very much when Thich Nhat Hanh, he talks a lot about mindfulness. We have to be very mindful of everything that we do, everything that happens to us, about our own thoughts and emotions. And many times, unfortunately, because we are too distracted, there are many things happening at once, we don't use this time to pay attention to ourselves, to pay attention to our emotions. And this is the invitation that Joana de Angelis is going to propose to us when trying to lead us to, first of all, realize that the presence of the spirits is a reality. And that very much like here on earth, we can be influenced by family members, by friends. We have the same thing that can happen in terms of spiritual influences. But the point is, here, I will easily acknowledge, the people that are trying to do that, their intentions. And when we are talking about the invisible life, not necessarily. So Joana de Angelis, in this lesson, and I mean, for starters, I love the name of the book that she gave. The name is Alert. The whole book, and this is lesson 31st, the whole book is about bringing, advices, alerts to us, like, saying, pay attention to that. This is very important to you. And although it was written I think in the 80s, it's as if when you're reading, she's talking to us right now. Such is the impact that its content have with the present, the current situation of our lives. So here she's saying, believe it or not, the spiritual exchange occurs naturally within the affinity laws that rule life, where individuals maintain their thoughts and place their moral values, is where the mechanisms of synchronization occur. They facilitate the spiritual communication. So here she starts, and she always starts those, each chapter, first of all, setting, the topic. She starts the first paragraph showing us what she's going to be talking about, giving and inviting us to reflect already, and then she starts developing it, but at the same time suggesting behaviors that can help us deal with the situation she is presenting. In this case, we are talking about spiritual influences. So she's saying here, in a very simple way, whether you believe it or not, regardless of your belief, the spiritual exchange occurs. And it is always going to be related to the law of affinity. It's very much like when we choose our friends or the places where we like to frequent on earth. It is going to be according to what we like. We will make friends, we will go to places that we find an affinity with. So, and this is what is going to be favoring a spiritual communication. So let's say that I'm a person that is prone or like very much to read and to write poems. I may more easily attune with spirits that are also or that also appreciate poems like I do, right? So she continues saying that spirits are nothing less than human beings divested of the material envelopment. And this is something that we have to keep in mind. Many people try to blame the physical body for our whims and everything, but it's always the spirit. The physical body is just an instrument, it's just a tool. And even when we are rid of the physical body, the spirit keeps on living, keeps on desiring and thinking or pursuing their interests. So they will go according to their own accomplishments. When they are delayed, they persevere in the primary stages of their evolution. If malevolent, they remain attached to weakness. So what she's telling us here is that it is not because we die that immediately we are going to receive a certificate of, knowing it all, right? Of being experts in this or that area, or changing completely our spiritual nature and become, a good person if we are not. Obviously, we could say that the process of death could change our perspective. And although this is a reality, believe it or not, it is not something that it's immediately recognized by the majority of spirits. It may even take a time for the spirit to realize that it has now lost its physical body and it lives in the spirit realm. So this is a process. And it doesn't happen overnight just because we lost our physical body. That's why, when we think about our human nature, meaning spiritual nature, it doesn't change. Like she says here, if perverse, they persist complying with the afflictions they promote. If envious, they endure in draining passions that intoxicate them. If persecutors, they give breath to the savage tendencies they cultivate. If rancorous, they amplify the circle in which they agonize, contaminating those that fall into their traps. So, what is the conclusion that we can have from what we just read? We survive, we keep our emotions, and we have a possibility of interacting with the physical realm. So, according to my nature, my emotions, I will conduct my behavior as a spirit. And how am I going to interact with the physical realm? Because we have unfinished business, and many of us will have unfinished business when the time to cross over arrive for us. What happened is that we may return to Earth, let's say to intermingle with life on Earth in order to interfere with people that perhaps have interfered with us. And this is why, again, being mindful of our thoughts, trying to identify if the thoughts are ours or not. And, emotions, we can exchange emotions much more than we realize. Take for instance, the moment we are living now, that everyone is feeling so much anguish and anxiety and fear. And regardless of your situation, whether you are protected or you have a good, economic fit situation, family life is all good, it is impossible for us not to feel immersed in the wave of thoughts, of emotions, and in this moment, a lot of them imbalanced emotions, that like waves of energy will come to us. And all of a sudden you feel that pressure that you cannot even recognize, saying, why is that? Everything should be good on a personal level, but it's still, that is something that is dragging you down. We cannot disconnect from one another. That's why it is so important for us to understand this concept of, brotherhood, of fraternity, because we're just going to move on, helping each other to move on. So Joanna de Angelis, on the same token, she says the same occurs with those who live in beauty and love. They foment work and the arts, exercise virtues, and promote progress. They ensure relevant conquests in which they are depositaries, irradiating goodness and mimicking those who give them benevolent assistance. So here, it's very important that Joanna de Angelis is telling us that, because she's not saying you're doomed to become prey of the emotions of lower level spirits. No, she's saying, listen, there are many high level spirits, many spirits that already live in beauty and love. But remember, we are always talking about our own possibilities. Who am I going to be inviting to be next to me? So the spiritual influences that we are going to be receiving depend entirely on us. And God, if there was one thing that would be perhaps interesting for us to do when we first get in contact or know about the presence of spirits, it would be to give way of, still express our emotions of blaming others. Now we can say, it was a spirit that it was spiritually attached to me. That's why I was rude to you. That's why I behaved this way. But now we know, okay, this can be a fact, but it's still I'm the one responsible for opening the doors of my spirit to those companions. And even if sometimes it is impossible for us on the level of evolvement that we find ourselves not to connect with the inferior sides, inferior aspects of, the spiritual realm, still we can resist. Still we cannot allow them to install themselves and make their connections with us even stronger. So here is when she invites us to do the following. Do not allow yourself moral slippages, because it is really due to our moral decay that we will connect with the inferior spirits. We want to connect with benefactors, with high-level spirits. We have to go to their levels, or we have to make an effort to go to their level, and they will come to us. So what she recommends here for us is to establish a period of personal vigilance and vitalize your duties in your mind to exercise them through sentiments when in the presence of others. So what is this period of personal vigilance, if not the know thyself? Question 919 and 919A of the Spirit's book talks about this. And this is what Joanna de Angelis, and this is why I think that for the moment, the study of Joanna de Angelis is so important to all of us, because she's coming to us to talk and to invite us to reflect upon our own moral behaviors, to work on our inner transformation, which is not easy. No one is saying that it is easy, but she's saying, listen, you are much more mature now than when you receive the first lessons about improving oneself from Jesus himself and others that followed. Even the Spiritist doctrine that we have, the moral laws that we have, the gospel according to Spiritism, that it's basically a word. It has nothing to do with religion, and it has everything to do with our moral transformation. And this is what Joanna de Angelis comes and talks to us, inviting us to do this, to have the courage to do this inner journey, to analyze ourselves, to not be afraid to declare to ourselves. We don't have to declare to others. No one is saying that. It's just between you and God. Us looking really, truly of what we are right now, and what can we do to better myself, and as a consequence, not only becoming a very good influence in the environment that I act in this world, but also being capable of synchronizing with spirits that are of a much better nature. she says here that those that leave earth is strongly magnetized by vices return eager, parched, anxious, trying to continue the unfortunate program presently interruptedly, using kindred attendants that provide them with physical organs. Consequently, the caravan of defenseless victims suffering crude spiritual possessions is very large. So, spiritual attachment is very common because if we persist on acting upon our inferior nature, we are going to attract spirits that have the same inclinations that we have. And since they can somehow enjoy what they could not enjoy in the life of spirits, if not through an incarnate person, they will come and make us fulfill their needs. You see, let me tell you about an example. That practice that unfortunately many of us do not have of praying before our meals. Many people will look at the side of praying before the meals only from the religious aspect. But from the spiritual aspect, spirits that will miss a good meal, they can come and try to enjoy the meal with us and even lead us to the intake of a quantity much bigger than we would want, just because we have to satisfy their whims. So when we pray before eating, like saying, may we be protected, may this food be um, a good nourishment from my soul, and may I be satisfied, content with even a small portion of it, we are preventing ourselves of exaggerating the intake of food that we are consuming, not because of ourselves, but because of what others. How many times sometimes we leave at the table and an hour later you're still hungry? It can be because of that, because you're partaking the meal with somebody else, and so on. So there are many things that we have to be thinking about this. So again, the recipe: free yourself from inferior passions. Okay, we'll be saying easily said than done. We sympathize, it is. But let's work on aspirations and shaping the future with proper actions. Changing your vicious mental cliches and renewing your internal landscape. So it is an educational process. Now that we are aware of a world that so far we haven't realized and the impact that it can have on us, we can do something about it. Of course, it's going to be a process, but we have to start this process. We will have to do it anyway. The law is that of progress, and sooner or later, we will be doing that. So the sooner we do that, the best is going to be for ourselves. So here she invites us to be a practitioner of prayer, of the prayer of silence, reflecting about real values of life. I loved when she said practitioner of the prayer of silence. It reminded me of that lesson, the story from Francisco Xavier, the famous Brazilian medium that wrote more than 400 titles, all for charity purposes. And there was a time that he was going to a very difficult situation, because regardless whether you're good or not, doing your good deeds, this earth is still a challenge for all of us. So his mother, the spirit of his mother would normally appear to him, communicate to him. He was very prolific in terms of, mediumship and mediumistic abilities. So one day she came to him and said, "My son, what you need is the water of peace." Like she was giving him a prescription. So because he was a very obedient son, the following day he went to the pharmacy to look for this prescription that his mother gave him, drink water of peace. And of course they had never heard about it. He couldn't find anywhere. Next time his mother appears to him, he said, "Listen, mother, I tried to find the water of peace that you recommend to me, but I couldn't." And she said, "Oh, my silly son. What I'm talking about is every time you feel the urge of replying to a malicious comment, of engaging into any kind of dispute, give yourself to inferior passions that you are going to externalize through the use of your words, drink a sip of water and don't swallow it until the emotion goes away." So this is the water of peace. And so the prayer of silence here is how many times we could prevent ourselves into aggravating even more situations that we face ourselves, that we are, if we just could be quiet. But we have to reply. We have to say something. And here is what she says. Does it really worth, when you put it into consideration, the real values of life? So if you have to attach to something, attach yourself to loving others, contributing to the well-being of all in general. So her invitation is that when you feel your negative tendencies incited, awaken, and react, do not allow yourself to be hypnotized by the disturbing spirits. Resonate with Jesus, and he, the unconditional and liberator friend, will come to your aid, favoring you with peace and happiness. So what is the invitation here? Every time we feel that the negative is about to take hold of us, let us look for the positive. Here, she gives the example of, Jesus, his message, the peace and happiness that can come out of it. But it can be anything that will remove us from those negative, so destructive emotions. Because now we understand that they are not only damaging to ourselves, and they are not exclusively the result of our own emotions, but that they can be increased by the invitation that we send out to the world and the world of spirits when I open myself to the negative energy that can come in my way. And the same thing is when we open ourselves to the positive. It is going to become much easier for us to be open to the inspiration, the intuition of the presence of those highly evolved spirits. So now it is a matter of choice. We will be connecting with the spiritual realm, whether we accept that or not, believe that or not. This is a reality. But with whom I'm going to be connected, it is my choice. I understand that when we talk about it, like we said, it's so easily said, so difficult to be done. But you see, we have to start. Little by little, we will be capable of being in control, of controlling our emotions. And listen, when we talk about the subject that Juana de Angelis brings about here, this spiritual influence, and the aftermath of all of that, there are so many scientists talking about the same thing, how the negative emotions can be damaging to us, damaging to our emotional, psychological state, to our physical state. But now we bring it another one into the picture, which is the spiritual state. There are many, many inspiring, loving, good, evolved spirits. They are cheering for us, that wants to help us in this journey of spirituality, of reaching peace of mind, of reaching enlightenment. So this is the invitation that Juana de Angelis is bringing to us here. Let us allow them to find a way to reach us, and we will have, as a result, much more peace and harmony and happiness, like we look for so much. I always like to finish, or whenever possible, with a touch of humor. So here we have this cartoon showing little ghosts saying, I'm getting weird readings here. I think this place is crawling with people. Yeah, because sometimes not even the spirits are aware of the people that live in the place. And this can be a topic for a next time. Thank you so much for, being here with us, joining us in this presentation, and together, exploring this world of spirits that is our world as well. So now we invite Larry and Fabricio to bring questions or comments.
Thank you, Jussara. Thank you very much for this talk. It's lovely. One thing that your example that you gave about Chico Xavier and his mom, there is one book from André Luiz. I think one of the first books, I think it's translated into Astral City. It says, it gives exactly the same advice. When you have some emotions that is negative, before you react it, put some water in your mouth, and before you actually say anything bad or you react or doing something bad, let that goes away, and then you're only going to be able to swallow the water when the emotion is gone. It's a really good exercise. And I have been practicing that. Sometimes it's difficult, and then I choke. But
Yeah, that's interesting joke. Yeah, because Divaldo also says that the one thing that Joana de Angelis commonly say is that when we have some negativity, how can we put this aside? And then she says, according to him, that the best way to put the negative aside is to substitute that with the positive. So whenever you have a negative thought, you try to push this away, even because, like we said, now this negative thought may not even be yours. It can, it can be minding your own business during the day, and all of a sudden, an emotion that may not be a good one concerning somebody else comes to you. Oh, last time I met this person, I think she was crossed with me because she was not that warm when she greeted me, right? And we start creating out of nowhere, and if we allow it, next time we see this person, we are going to be rude to the person, and it's just something, some kind of interference. And unfortunately, like I said, not everyone will be inclined to accept or understanding this perspective, but it doesn't make it less true.
excellent. I'm gonna go to our friends here on Facebook. I think there are some questions popping up, and for those of you that is to listen to us, if you want to ask any questions, this is our questions and answer session. There is a question that comes from Bob Williams, our friend Bob Williams. He says, can we attract spiritual influence that are opposite to our own good or bad lifestyle?
Absolutely, Bob. Because, let's say that we have a bad lifestyle. But on the other hand, we will always have spirits that likes us. Acquaintance, friends, relatives from previous incarnation, and even from this one. Always there will be, spirits that will sympathize with us, and then that we will try to come to us to exert a good influence on us. And our guardian angel is that. It's a spirit that is designated by the higher force of life. You can give, I normally call it God, but you can give the denomination that it pleases you most. And there is always this spirit 24/7 that is there to help us in the good path. On the other hand, we may be very good or try to do the best that we can because, perfect we are not. So there will always be some flaws here and there that could be inviting to spirits that will be attracted by the flaws that we present. But of course, the more we strive to be good, the harder it will be for them to stay with us, to remain with us. They may even come, but they will say, you know what? I'm trying, let's say that there is a spirit that wants to deviate Fabrizio from the good way. And then he says, okay, I'm going to do that. But then, because Fabrizio is really involved with all this, journey of spirituality, doing his effort to overcome his negative inclinations, like many of us are doing, the spirit will say, you know what? I even succeed every now and then in take him out of his path. But it's always so, uh, you know, uh, difficult. It requires so much effort. On the other hand, his neighbor is so easy. I think I'm going to move to his neighbor house. You see, so even when we have, because we do, and we can attune with negative forces, sometimes they will just give up on us because they will see that they will not have the best result.
Thank you, Sarah. So next questions come from Joanne. She's also in the United States. If a person has not lived a good life, crossed over, do they have the ability to change his spirit in the spiritual realm?
This is the beauty of life, and this is the beauty of immortal life. Every second of our lives count. So every second I can take a resolution to start doing things better. And of course, one would only imagine that after crossing over, because we will see things that for now we are not so sure whether we believe it or not, but there it will become a reality once we cannot deny the fact that we continue living as a spirit. The whole process can accelerate if we want to apply ourselves, because now we have a clear understanding of us as a spirit. Absolutely, but we can even do that now, and every second counts. And I mean, there are so many people that says, I started too late in the game. I don't know. I mean, how many years, decades I've lost. It doesn't matter, because here we are not talking about quantity. We are talking about a lesson learned. If it took you 5 years to learn how to master reading and writing, at the end of 5 years, you will read and write, and that's what matters. If it took you a year, it's the same thing. So now we are not going to be comparing notes, saying, oh, for me it was 5, for you it was 2, for you it was 10. It doesn't matter. We learned the lesson. So here is what is really beautiful. It doesn't matter what I did in the past. What really matters is what I'm doing now and what I'm going to be doing in the future. And going from there, and growing from there.
Thank you, Ju. Next question is from our friend Sue. She says, do you feel that teaching children that they are spirit and that all in nature are spirit would be beneficial in their development and understanding that everything is connected?
You know what, Sue? I don't think we even need to tell our children that. Everyone else is doing that as well. I mean, every time I watch a cartoon, I mean, look at the cartoons that Pixar and Disney are releasing now, like, the Coco, that was so famous when they talk about, the meeting with the dead. Now they released this one that is called Soul. The video games, I think the video games are so fantastic. I remember when my son was young, he's 20 now already, but we would be going with those video games, and he always had extra lives. It was like he was having a new incarnation, so he would die, but no worries, I'm going to be reborn again. I have another chance to succeed again and to go to the next level. So in terms of subliminal messages, we have been bombarded with the idea of us being more than just meets the eye. So, but yes, if you do have this understanding, why not facilitating life for your children? Not trying to brainwash or to make them be the weird person of their classes, that's going to their classroom, but talking about it with a lot of natural, in a natural way, and yeah, and the rest TV, cartoons, movies are doing for us as well.
It remember me a Disney cartoon. I don't know if you have seen. I think was the latest Disney cartoon called Soul,
So I watch it, yeah.
and it's very much what you just said.
And did you see the one that is called Coco? Is from 2 years ago. It was I think it even won an Oscar or something. It was so beautiful because it was all about a reverence for the dead, like the dead really are there and really can feel and be present in your day-to-day lives. So it's extraordinary as well, and how they can visit the world of the dead, and and they will see the dead that are forgotten by their family members and are very sad, and others that are not. And I mean, so it's beautiful, and the soul comes just as a compliment. It's quite extraordinary. I think for children, and like I said, the subliminal message that they are sending is with this natural way of them understanding that there is more than we imagine.
Lovely. I don't think we have any more questions. Florence, Jussara, do you have any thing you want to say as your closure remarks before we go to the closing prayer?
No, sat and listened to it intently. Absolutely wonderful, Jussara, as always from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you so much. It's always so good to be with you. And, my goal in this life, although I'm not a native, as you can see, it is to disseminate this beautiful knowledge, and make people more aware of spirituality. There's so much for us to learn and to understand and expand our vision, and it makes life so much more interesting. I believe I said last time, but I used to say that although I started very early in life, but the more I started understanding and pursuing even more this path, was like before I used to see the world in black and white, and now I see in colors, and it's so beautiful to see the world in colors, to understand more, and to understand the connections that exist between us, among ourselves. I mean, regardless whether we met or not, physically speaking, spiritually speaking, we are all around. And I'm sure that during the sleep state, we are talking and making plans, right?
Definitely. And the wonderful thing now as well, I'm converting an awful lot of these talks and the ones the church has done to podcasts, and people are loving them.
Yeah.
Because they're not sort of tied watching a video now. They can just drop it into their phone and listen to it wherever. So it's absolutely wonderful what we're creating here.
Yeah. And you see, this is something that is going to remain, right? I mean, once we're gone, it's going to remain, because we are talking about the eternal truths, and of course, and I'm really excited with everything that we have achieved in this field, especially in terms of the English movement. There have been wonderful initiatives with good quality material and people, and I think this is something that we have to feel very blessed for. And I'm very happy, and may God bless you, all the effort that you do there in the Spiritualistic Church, and you in Bournemouth, and everyone else. I saw that the Osbornes are here as well, and Tanya Moore is here. Everyone that is contributing for this big movement of changing the world. When I mean world, I'm not just talking about the physical world now, and thank you so much. Thank you, the good spirits that have been inspiring us in this journey.
It's an amazing range we've got in tonight. We've got Sweden, Holland, the UK, obviously, America. Joan there is asking, what part of America are you in?
I'm in New York City. I lived in London. I lived in London for 3 years, but I lost my British accent. The only thing that I have never lost, that I cannot say it in American, is the word world. I say it more like you do, because once it took me a while to learn to pronounce world. Now I cannot do differently, so I'm strange for the Americans as well. I remember that when I was going to move, my neighbor said, "Oh my God, you're going to lose your beautiful accent." I said, "Well."
Brilliant.
So
Joan, go on, Fabricio.
I think I was going to say what you're going to say, Lawrence, because Joanne says she's from Philadelphia.
Oh, so we're not that far, John.
No, she's noticed that.
Very close. You can find me at spiritist.us, which is the website of the United States Spiritist Federation. It's spiritist.us.
We have lovely comments here. Marion say, thank you, much food for thoughts. Susan say, beautiful talk, very clear, inspiring. Thank you. And then Pam, a lovely evening, all the three of you. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Okay, so quickly here, a few announcements. Our next talk is not going to be on the 7th of May. So we are doing the talk on the 14th of May. And our speaker is Julio Carvalho. He's also on the United States. And the topic of the talk is yet to be confirmed. Okay, so I think we have covered everything. I would like to say good night to our friends on Facebook. And once again, thank you very much, Jussara, to be here with us tonight. It's been a lovely evening.
Thank you.
We've all gone quiet. Who should be talking?
Oh.
We're still live.
Sorry? It's over to me.
I was just trying to put the address here.
Okay.
For the Spiritist.us.
Lawrence, it says here we are still live.
Yeah.
Yes, I said,
yes.
Who is meant to be talking? I know we're live. We have the whole world watching us, and there's all three of us going, is it you or is it me?
We are live and alive.
Right? It's nice to have that confirmed, isn't it, that we are still live. That's right. It's always a comfort.
Yeah. Well, especially nowadays, right? So let's say good night to everyone. Thank you so much for you joining us, and for those that are going to be here listening to that later, thank you so much, Larry and Fabricio. And I always like to show my gratitude to the good spirits that have allowed us, that have inspired us in our talk. And since we are doing this work with the spirit of Joanna de Angelis, particular thanks to her, because we know that she's guiding us as well in our efforts. And well, that was it.
Wonderful.
Thank you. So I will say then good night to everyone, and thanks for being with us. And I'll see you all again on the 14th of May. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.